Hey guys, Mr. Kurzil here. We're going to continue our work with fractions. I know you were working with Mr. Popko yesterday talking about fractions with the same denominator or fractions with a different numerator. And we're going to just kind of continue with that today and go a little to our next step. But first, just as a review, looking at these two models and looking at the two fractions, we have 3/4 and 1/4. And if you were asked to compare those two fractions, you have a couple of ways that you could try to solve it. So one way to do it was to draw a model like we have down here in our slide. And you can see that one of them has 3/4, where we have three of the parts shaded in red. And the other model is 1/4, where we see one out of the four parts shaded in. And simply looking at that model, we can tell that 3/4 is a greater fraction. It has more shaded in. It's a greater fraction. The other way to look at that is to look at the denominator. And again, if they're the same denominator, all you have to do is really compare the numerator being your top number. And we know that 3 is greater than 1. So this is the symbol we would put down, 3/4 greater than 1/4. So that's a review of yesterday's lesson. Today, we're going to talk about fractions with the same numerator. All right, so we're going to kind of flip this around a little bit. What happens if the number on the top is the same as the other fraction, but the denominators are different? So this goes back to our vocabulary that we started this unit with, right? Anytime we start a new unit in math, science, social studies, English, right, there are usually some new vocabulary words that we want to pick up to help us understand the concept. We know that in math, the numerator is the parts of the fraction being counted, and the denominator is the total amount of parts in one whole. So we're going to watch a quick video on someone helping us explain what fractions are with the same numerator, and then we're going to go over it and we're going to practice it together before students do their independent work. Okay, so after watching that video, there was one part of the video where she's asking us to take notes, and that was actually done for her class. So we do not have those pieces, but they are really good questions, right? We want to figure out if we have more pieces, are those pieces going to be smaller or larger? So let's look at this. Let's look at this model and see if we can actually answer that question ourselves. So here we have 3/4 and 3/6. And we see 6 is bigger than the number 4, but that does not mean the fraction is bigger. So if I look at my model, I could see that in 3/6, my whole shape was broken up more times. I have more pieces, but each of those pieces is smaller. So let's compare by looking at our model. 3/4 has 3 red squares out of 4. 3 parts are shaded out of the 4. And on 3/6, we have 3 shaded out of the 6. Now, these shapes are the same size. So which shape had more shaded? Which side is greater? If you said 3/4, then you were correct. 3/4 is greater than 3/6, even though 6 is bigger than 4. That's a real big difference that we have to realize when we are dealing with fractions with the same numerator. All right, so we're going to take one of the problems that was done in the video and we're going to break it down again. All right, so let's say we have one whole, okay, and we're given the fractions 2/8 and 2/3. Now, again, think about it. The larger the denominator, the smaller each piece needs to be. So I'm going to actually create or draw 8 parts. All right, we know 8/8 would give me one whole, so 8 parts, and I'm going to shade 2 of them in, like we did. We see 2/8 are shaded in. And now I'm going to make another shape exactly the same length, but this time we're going to break it up into 2/3. And here we can clearly see that 2/3 is greater than 2/8. All right, or 2/8 is smaller than 2/3. So remember, when you see fractions with the same numerator but different denominator, the larger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. Let's try one more. All right, so here we have 2/6 and 2/2. Now, you might notice something right away about the 2/2, right? That might actually pop up. But you'll see I also made the shapes for us, but I didn't shade them in. So let's go through that process together. We just created our shapes, and let's start with 2/6. So I have 2 out of the 6 parts I'm going to shade in. There's 1, there's 2. So there's my 2/6. And over here, I have 2/2. Well, I have the same numerator, right? Different denominator. Let's say 2 out of the halves. 1, 2. So which side is shaded the most? Well, hopefully you can see that 2/2 is clearly going to be shaded in more. Now, I'm going to show you a site that I'm going to have a link for us in our Google Classroom. It's going to bring us to a page that looks like this. This is a great way to practice to get an idea. What I can do here is I can drag my fractions. So let's say I want to take 1/2, and I want to find out if 1/2 is greater than or less than 1/8. Wow, so now I can look and I can see, wow, 1/2 really is greater than 1/8. What if I want to know if 1/2 is greater than 2/8? It looks like 2/8 is still less than 1/2. Let's try another one. Wow, 1/2 is still greater than 3/8. I'm going to keep going. I'll try another one. those look like they're about equal. Okay, that's something to keep in mind for a future lesson. Let's try 5/8. All right, so 5/8 would be greater than 1/2. So this is a really great way. I would encourage you to play around with this site a little bit, just moving some of your fractions around and comparing different sizes and noticing 3/8, even though 3 is bigger than 1. All right, we know that 3/8 is greater than 1/6, but 1/6, even though 6 is smaller than 8, is bigger than 1/8. All right, and there are a few other different things that you can play around with here. If I happen to go to one of our other sections here, this is a great one right over here, checking out making your own fractions. So here I have 1/2, so I'm going to drag my 1/2 up. And let's say I want to play around, I'm going to move this number to 3/4. I can drag that up. Whoa, so I see 3/4 is greater than the 1/2 on the bottom. So I would really, really encourage you to play around with this site a little bit to get comfortable. It's a great resource for us to practice. This is not a site that your teachers can check on. This is really just for you to get better on your own, to practice. There will be a document sheet for us to work on so you can show your progress with your teachers. So please make sure you complete that and share it with your teacher when you have it. But please also go back to this website and check it out. All right, guys, you have a great day. We're going to have another lesson tomorrow, a nice little review on this tomorrow. Have a good one.